We'll begin the news at this hour with some reactions from Nigeria's apex court rulings and some governorship election disputes. Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has urged his opponents during the 2023 governorship election to join him to develop the state. Sanwo-Olu urged the duo to join the progressive governance train, noting that he and his deputy, Obafemi Hamzat, do not profess a monopoly of ideas. This is coming hours after the Supreme Court affirmed the election of Sanwo-Olu, which was earlier upheld by the Tribunal and Appeal Court in the state. The Labour Party candidate in the election, Gbadebo Roadvival, had in his appeal claimed that Sanwo-Olu's running mate's qualification, Obafemi Hamzat, had renounced his citizenship as a Nigerian.
I think first is really to thank God that we've been able to get to the end of all of this court proceeding process, and it gives us the full profile, to affirm our victory at the polls. But pretty much it's really just to thank all of our citizens in Lagos for their support, irrespective of what party affiliation you are, and to call everyone, all Lagosians, to join us once again on our Greater Lagos journey. It's a journey where we've said no one will be left behind. We are transforming the state, the city. We're building structures, processes, institutions that will outlive us, and we're putting in place a governance structure that would improve the economic, relevance of Lagos in the country. And so for us, it's not just about a victory; it's about the people that have put in all of their hope and aspiration into our government. So really,
in northwestern Nigeria, Zamfara State Governor Dauda Lawal has called on the opposition to work with his administration on its rescue mission. According to Lawal, working together is critical to achieving sustainable development in the state. The Apex Court, in its judgment, set aside the decision of the Court of Appeal, which declared the Zamfara governorship poll inconclusive. But delivering the lead decision of the Supreme Court, Justice Emmanuel Agim describes the judgment of the lower court as perverse and lacked evidential foundation. Lawal, in a statement, describes the Apex Court verdict as a reflection of the people's desire for positive development and progress. Following the Supreme Court verdict on Friday, Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed has taken to his social media page to react to the electoral victory. Mohammed, in a post on his official X account, offered praise to God for his victory, saying the victory at the Apex Court belongs to the people of Bauchi and the People's Democratic Party. According to him, the victory reaffirms that the good work in Bauchi must go on. The Apex Court, in a lead judgment read by Justice Ibrahim Salawa, dismissed the appeal filed by Sadiq Abubakar of the All Progressive Congress for lacking merit. In the meantime, supporters of the People's Democratic Party in Plateau State have taken to the streets to celebrate the victory of Caleb Mutfwang as the governor of the state. This followed the judgment served by the Supreme Court ruling in Abuja, upholding the election of Governor Mutfwang at the 2023 general elections. News Center's Chizoba Anyowe in Jos reports that security operatives have also been on a show of force to ensure no breakdown of law and order in the state. We'll have details of this brought to you in our subsequent bulletins. Let's also tell you that the Supreme Court has affirmed Abba Yusuf of the New Nigeria People's Party as the duly elected governor of Kano State. The tribunal had set aside Yusuf Abba of the New Nigeria People's Party victory after declaring 165,663 of his votes invalid. The tribunal held that the deducted votes were from ballot papers that were neither stamped nor signed. Yusuf's victory in the 2023 governorship election was challenged by the All Progressive Congress APC and its governorship candidate in Kano State, Nasiru Yusuf Gawuna. The Court of Appeal had earlier nullified Yusuf's victory in the election. Meanwhile, News Center's Marvelous Obomanu, who was given a live report from the Supreme Court premises in Abuja, was rough-handled and had his phone taken away from him by those believed to be supporters of NNPP.
Marvelous. Marvelous. If you can hear me. Good afternoon.
To unpack these developments from the Supreme Court, I'll be joined now by political analyst Achike Chude. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Felicity. Thanks for having me.
Let's begin with your overall impression of the rulings today. That's quite a number of decisions announced in one day, isn't it?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, the court obviously wanted to do it this way. Perhaps it saves them a lot, maybe in terms of logistics, in terms of, I don't know. But, and that created tension in many parts of the country, since it was not just one judgment, but many judgments. And so, again, I think some people expected some earthquake decisions. Especially in places like Kano, in places like a place like Kano, in a place like Plateau State, for instance, where people had begun to insinuate that politics was driving some of, the previous, or politics drove the previous rulings at the Court of Appeal, and so I think it's good that we've gotten that done. Obviously, there are questions that need to be asked about the nature and character of our democracy and all that. But it is good that we didn't have any major crisis. Kano was one place that was considered a hotspot. Of course, it is why in most of these state capitals, where the judgments in some of these state capitals, the police was heavily deployed and other security agencies to ensure that there will not be any breakdown of law and order following the announcement. So I'm quite happy that in a way the results, the judgment seemed to be a reflection of what the people felt, about how that election was conducted and who won and who lost.
Well, would it be a leap then to say that the Supreme Court, by these judgments, has made some effort at redeeming its image? Based off of its previous ruling that a lot of persons had complained that there was something flawed.
No, I'm not sure I can make that assertion. The court had become notorious for quite some time. If you look at even statements, not from us laymen, we are called laymen when it comes to issues of jurisprudence. But the reality is that people from who understand the workings of the court, the former deputy to the present Supreme, Justice of the Supreme Court, the head of the Supreme Court, talked about serious corruption going on in the courts. And so nobody would know it better than somebody who had served there and got into the level of, second in command to the Chief Justice of the Federation. And then we also had Olumide Akpata, the last, the erstwhile chairman of the Nigerian Bar Association, in a law conference in France, saying that that the political class had almost succeeded, or had almost succeeded in subjugating the judiciary, and taking over the judiciary. And then you had, of course, so many other lawyers, very prominent lawyers, who have cast doubt on the credibility of the courts. And so when we saw judgments coming out, being churned out, during this last election, a lot of them did not make sense, even to the layperson. Some of them were in contradiction to, other judgments that were given by courts of coordinate jurisdiction. So that brought the courts to ridicule. And so this thing did not start even with this election. We remember the Imo State, the most notable example, the Imo State election, where number 4 became number 1, than the governor of the Imo State, and so many other things. And so it does not in any way erode the feelings of the people with regards to the courts. Look, the reality is that the courts are supposed to be the final arbiter, especially, at the level of the Supreme Court. Once they have made a ruling, there's nothing anybody can do because we have to maintain public peace and order. So we just have to accept it. But there's something that you call the court of public opinion, ultimately at the end of the day. And in the court of public opinion, our judiciary stands indicted. The Supreme Court stands indicted, as well as the lower courts. That is the general perception of Nigerians about our courts. And that is very, very sad, that it is also a place that is riddled with corruption and nepotism. And so we have to look at this.
Please don't forget your thoughts. I'm sorry I have to interject. Don't forget your thoughts. We will continue with this conversation in a little bit. Just let's take a little break. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying with us. And Achike, thank you for your patience. Please continue your thoughts.
Yeah, so essentially what I was saying is that with regards to the judiciary, the horse escaped from the barn a very long time ago. And I'm not sure that there's anything they can do now at this particular point in time to redeem the image that is already battered. Because the people who were involved in some of these decisions, yes, we cannot question them. But like I said, there is a court of public opinion, and people have an impression about our courts. People have the impression that the corruption that is eating virtually every organ of government in this country is also deeply entrenched in our judicial system. And we have heard that from judicial officers, lawyers, and people who had left retired judges.
I would want to explore, when we talk of court of public opinion, I would want us to explore that conversation, but we don't have enough time on the news. So I'm just going to go on and ask you about the concerns. Pundits are very, very concerned about the seeming flawed decision-making of the lower court. It seems everything has to go to the Supreme Court for decisions to be made. Is that something that we should, there's a lot of worry about the judicial system already, but is that something that we should be concerned about and actions needs to be taken? Because it looks like all the decisions from the Supreme Court's ruling, all of them had something wrong with them. Some even said perverse and illogical.
Yeah, some of them were perverse, and they were extremely troubling. Because even if you look at the arguments that the justices were making about some of them almost became political. They almost gave the impression that they belonged there, or that they were also in the political arena. Some were talking, for instance, the issue of the case of Plateau State. They were trying to say that the governor was not sponsored by his party. These are things, and the Supreme Court in some of these cases said it had already been settled. That you have internal, party, that some of these issues that they brought to the court were internal party matters, and internal party matters should be left to be settled by the parties. But you have a situation where, regardless of the decisions of the upper courts, the lower courts continued along the same trajectory. And so, if you see, you consider the plethora of cases that were overturned by the Supreme Court today, you'll be embarrassed, and you'll be asking yourself exactly what is wrong with the lower court. But there's something we need to change about our politics in this country and about the judiciary. Obviously, this issue of allowing people who have won, whose elections have been disputed, to remain in government, use the resources of government, appoint people into government, and after about a year or so, you remove them from government. What do you from power? How do you recover the monies that these impostors have already been spending on behalf of the people of their states, even at the national level? So these are the issues. And the politicians, look, in 1999, don't forget, lastly, in 1999, when Obasanjo came to power and he won the election of that year, he couldn't become president because there was a pending, matter before inauguration, and that matter was dispensed of before inauguration. And so by the time, he was sworn in at the appropriate time. But you have a situation, and they came into power and changed it. They benefited from that process and then got in there and changed it because they wanted to be in charge when elections are being conducted and to be able to influence the elections. And so this is what we're having, the problem that we're having. All election matters must be decided before these people are sworn in. It is unconscionable. It is a waste of resources, and shows that we have not moved democratically for us to continue to allow this kind of situation
you
to
always
persist.
Bump up real issues for conversation. Hopefully we'll have more time to talk about the influence of those who continue to peddle power.
You have a way of bringing out the best in me, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for speaking with us.
Humility, anyway. All right, thank you.
The 2023 presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, has congratulated some governors whose elections were upheld by the Supreme Court on Friday. The Apex Court on Friday upheld the elections of governors in opposition parties, including Bala Mohammed, Bauchi, Dauda Lawal, Zamfara, Caleb Mutfwang, Plateau, and Abba Yusuf Kanu. Atiku, who congratulated them in a statement, also declared readiness to lead a coalition of opposition political parties against the All Progressive Congress. Atiku recently proposed a merger of all opposition political parties while hosting the National Executive Committee of the Inter-Party Advisory Council of Nigeria. Away from election disputes, the Progressive Governors Forum has hailed Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu's efforts at tackling insecurity. During a visit to the president on Friday, the forum, an umbrella body for governors elected under the All Progressive Congress, commended the Nigerian leader for facing insecurity headlong. Chairman of the forum and Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma told the press after the meeting in Aso Rock that the governors lauded the president for his efforts in tackling insecurity. He adds that insecurity will become a thing of the past in the country. Now, the three-part documentary published on Monday on BBC's official YouTube page featured over 24 Synagogue Church of Nations ex-members, disciples, if you please. These individuals shared accounts of alleged sexual assault, manipulation, forced abortion, and other abuses attributed to the late cleric. Omolola Olola, they made a visit to the Synagogue Church of All Nations and its environs to speak with residents on what they know about the late TB Joshua and his church. Here's details in this report.
Trending earlier this week was the three-part investigative documentary on the tele-evangelist and general overseer of the Synagogue Church of All Nations, late Prophet TB Joshua. The BBC documentary, titled Disciples, the cult of TB Joshua, alleged that he engaged in torture, rape, forced abortion and enslavement of Nigerian, British, South African and American nationals who were members of the Synagogue Church of All Nations.
Some people ended up stopping going to their own churches. They'd sit home and watch Emmanuel TV. Everybody wanted the privilege to go to meet this big giant called TB Joshua.
It was the worst decision I've ever made going there. I will never experience fear like it, ever.
The documentary has since elicited reactions online from Nigerians home and abroad, and some have said it has left some questions unanswered, especially about the true agenda of the documentary, as well as the timing. News Central's Omolola Ololade sought to speak with officials of the Synagogue Church of All Nations to get their side of the story, but they said they weren't granted interviews at the moment. While effort to speak with officials of the church may have proved abortive. Residents of Bolonpelu in the Ikotun area of Lagos, where the church headquarters is located, had a lot to say about the late TB Joshua. Contrary to the narrative online, especially from the documentary, residents had positive tales to tell.
Anytime you meet man of God, TB Joshua, you understand, your problem is over. Both spiritual and physical, your problem is over.
He was a good man. He's nice, he's very kind, and he's a giver. He shares a lot of things. I'm part of people that have collected out of his things. Even the Bible that I'm using right now is the one that shares it.
A man that you come across in life, your life will change. To the extent that even the light we are using today is the man that provides it.
The Christian Association of Nigeria posited that contrary to popular opinion, the documentary is not an indictment on the church, while calling on the government to investigate questionable characters who use philanthropy to hide their wrongdoings.
It's not an indictment on the church. It is an indictment on who is accused. And it's quite unfortunate that he is not alive to defend himself. All this would have been very, very good if he is still alive. And when he was alive, what moves were taken to confront him with these issues and get him convicted?
For many Nigerians, the BBC documentary places a responsibility on government to beam a searchlight on the many TB Joshuas still existing across the country, investigate the veracity of the BBC's investigations, and establish if and where the law was violated and take necessary remedial actions. In Lagos for News Central, Omolola Ololade.
In northeast Nigeria, Borno State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has warned heads of the state's ministries, departments and agencies to strictly adhere to the state's budget for the effective and prudent management of resources. This comes after Zulum assented to the 358.7 billion naira appropriation bill recently passed by the State House of Assembly. Umaru Kirawa completes the report.
Borno State, located in Nigeria's northeast region, once regarded as one of Nigeria's most peaceful states, has in the last few years faced complex challenges associated with the Boko Haram and ISWAP insurgency. As a result, the need for robust socio-economic development. The Speaker of the State House of Assembly revealed that the 2024 budget, presented by Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu in late December 2023, has been reviewed upwards to cater for the state's expectation.
In consultation with the key members of the State Executive Council, we reviewed the proposed budget 2024 to the sum of 358,732,146 naira is hereby agreed and passed on 28 December 2023 as regards 2024 budget.
Borno State Governor appended his signature to the approved budget, thus legalizing the bill and signing it into law.
If you don't have budget, please don't send it to me. It's a capital punishment. If you don't have budget, don't send your request to my office. Neither send to the State Executive Council for consideration.
Governor Zulum urged government agencies to take responsibility for their roles in delivering essential services to the people of Borno State. He emphasized the importance of prudent financial management and eliminating wasteful expenditures with a clear focus on achieving value for money in public spending.
The ministry has to put in place appropriate tracking mechanism that will ensure budget implementation. Budgeting is very important.
Through the signed appropriation bill, allocations have been made to various sectors critical to the state's development agenda. These sectors include education, healthcare, agriculture, infrastructure, job creation, security, among others. Governor Zulum expressed his determination to ensure that these funds are utilized effectively to deliver tangible benefits to the people of Borno State. In Maiduguri for News Central, I am Umaru Kirawa.
The investigation into allegations of financial malfeasance in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation has continued to generate reactions across the country, while several senior officials have been confirmed to have visited the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) to shed more light on the investigations and explain their roles in the saga. One group in Abuja have thrown their weight behind the embattled Minister of Interior, saying his invitation by the president was unnecessary.
Nigeria has been awash with allegations of fraud by several senior officials, including notable cabinet members, which has sparked a flurry of investigations by the nation's anti-graft agency with promises to prosecute those found culpable. With the humanitarian affairs, power and interior ministries all being under intense scrutiny by the anti-graft agency, President Bola Tinubu has continued to receive rave reviews following measures taken so far.
Issues boiling around the humanitarian affairs that has linked to as many as possible people need to be properly investigated, and the president is highly commended for his swift reactions he has taken. We are aware that the EFCC are doing fantastic well, and the officers, both the civil servants and the political appointee political office holder, are also trying as much as possible to cooperate with the security agencies for us to achieve a better result.
Although the president has also ordered a reduction in the cost of governance in an effort to block loopholes for embezzlement, the group urged other arms of government to also toe the same line. They also called for a thorough investigation into the recent cases of alleged corruption, urging citizens to be wary of dragging innocent public office holders into it.
The Honorable Minister of Interior has actually done quite well. It then became so shocking how his name was honored into this. We learned that a company that he was in the board of directors was used to procure contract with the humanitarian ministry. In our own investigation, little investigation, we dug into matters and saw that he had actually resigned from the board of director of that company 5 years ago.
The security and the investigators should be allowed to do their job so that we don't keep putting pertinence into it, trying to drag so many persons, and at the end of the day, we won't be able to get results. It is high time we leave ethnics, religious bias, and also issues that are not critically concerned with that investigation, so that we don't keep creating much crisis, and at the end of the day, we won't be able to be focused to get results of the appropriate actions and reactions that we desire and needed.
Nigerians will be patiently waiting for the outcome of the investigations to be made public, as some have been calling for an impartial investigation. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Obomanu.
Minister of Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory says government has set a May deadline to ensure that operations at the city's metro line resumes full service. The minister, during an inspection tour of the light rail facility, frowned at the level of security measures put in place, saying it does not guarantee a smooth and effective operation of the service. Amadine Uyi reports.
The inspection commenced at the Abuja Light Rail Metro Station within the city center. The inspection team was led by the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory and accompanied by senior officials of the FCT administration, including contractors handling various projects associated with the light rail project. The minister engaged the security team responsible for the protection of rail equipment and infrastructure.
Some of them are taken to court and we have all our evidence and the reports. Handed over to civil defense, critical departments, FCT commands. Yes. Some were attending to cases. As soon as they go in there, they are basically 2 months. No, within a day, they will decide that. That is what we are facing always.
He then proceeded to inspect the construction works of the access roads leading to some of the rail terminals.
So you're telling me that this is where this was not originally there?
We met it this way. CCECs have done this.
No, what I'm asking you, the design of this access to and car parks, and then the entrance to the station?
From the design we got, this is the entrance to the station, sir.
So you have to break here?
Yes, and create a path.
Where people can walk down?
Walk into the train station.
He says that the inspection followed a directive from President Bola Tinubu, and the inspection was to review the security situation with the line.
Mr. President gave a directive which you must not take for granted. And so we have to come to make sure that things are in good shape. Like you said, when we visited the metro station, I discovered that there are issues of security lapses. And I remember when I came for the first time after our inauguration, I did say that they have to work on the issue of security by putting on the fence around the metro station in order to ward off criminals. Unfortunately, that has not been done.
He assured citizens that government is working to meet a May deadline to ensure that the metro line resumes operations.
If in May this year we are not able to operate this metro line, it will be very disastrous for me. And then, even all the stations, from what I've seen, designs are very poor. Who may have approved this design is not fair to Nigerians.
From Abuja, Amadine Uyi, reporting for News Central.
Away from Nigeria, the All People's Congress political party in Sierra Leone has declared their unequivocal support for former President Ernest Koroma. The former president is facing charges of treason and other offenses related to an alleged failed coup on November 26, 2023. The APC expressed deep disappointment and anger over what they deemed as the persecution of their former chairman and leader. Despite condemning the events of November 26, 2023, the APC expressed concern over what they perceived as a broader trend of democratic backsliding and the emergence of a one-party political system in Sierra Leone. The World Health Organization says Cape Verde has become the third African nation to be declared malaria-free, even as the disease continues to kill hundreds of thousands of people on the continent. The nation of about 500,000 inhabitants follows Mauritius in 1973 and Algeria in 2019. Worldwide, some 43 countries have been certified as malaria-free by the WHO, which requires showing that the domestic chain of transmission has been broken for at least 3 consecutive years. WHO Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus on Friday commended the government and people of Cape Verde for their unwavering commitment and resilience in their journey to eliminating malaria. The WHO estimates that malaria killed 608,000 people worldwide and infected 250 million in 2022.
Great pleasure to announce that on the advice of the WHO Technical Advisory Group on Malaria Elimination and Certification and the WHO Malaria Policy Advisory Group, I have certified Cabo Verde as malaria-free. Keeping Cabo Verde malaria-free will require ongoing training and continued investment in systems that protect the country against communicable diseases and continued vigilance. It will require continued investment in Cabo Verde's strong primary health system, without which elimination of malaria would not have been possible.
São as pessoas que fazem as coisas acontecer. Nós lideramos, criamos as condições, mas se não houver comportamento cidadão, se não houver atitude cidadã, se não houver participação cidadã e comunitária, os resultados não aparecem. Por isso, endossamos esta certificação.
Campaigns for Sunday's presidential and regional election in Comoros are set to end on Friday amid calls for boycott by some presidential candidates. Incumbent President Azali Assoumani is facing 5 challenges for his bid for a 4th term. For months, some of the candidates had threatened to boycott the election over the detention of political prisoners and concerns about the poll's credibility. Assoumani is a former military officer who first came to power after a coup in 1999. Both President Assoumani and the electoral body have assured the country of a transparent election. More than 300,000 people are registered to vote. Leaders of the East African Regional Bloc, IGAD, will next week meet in Uganda to discuss the growing diplomatic tensions between Ethiopia and Somalia. The party's president, Ismail Gwila, who is the current chair of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, made the announcement through a letter to the bloc's member states. The African Union and other international partners are expected to participate in the talks, which will also touch on the ongoing conflict in Sudan. Sudan has been in a civil war since a power struggle between the army and paramilitary rapid support forces sparked a civil war in April last year. IGAD has been steering regional efforts to broker a ceasefire between the warring parties. In the meantime, bombardment in the Sudanese capital have killed at least 33 civilians, most of them in airstrikes. On Thursday, a pro-democracy lawyers group announced that artillery fire killed 10 civilians in a residential area of Khartoum, where the army and paramilitary rapid support forces have been at war since April. Sudan has been gripped by nearly 9 months of war, pitting Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan against his former deputy, paramilitary commander Mohammed Hamdan Daglo. According to a conservative estimate by the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project, the war has claimed at least 12,190 lives, and the United Nations says more than 7 million people have been displaced. Catholic bishops in Africa have rejected Pope Francis' declaration to bless homosexual couples, asserting that it is contrary to the will of God. The umbrella body for African bishops across Africa says the Vatican's approval of same-sex blessing is not appropriate. The Symposium of Episcopal Conferences of Africa and Madagascar says the constant teaching of the Church describes homosexual acts as intrinsically disordered and contrary to the natural law. Last December, Pope Francis declared that priests should be permitted to bless same-sex couples. This has sparked mixed reactions from both the Catholic Church and the LGBT community. But the Vatican says blessings should not be part of regular church rituals or related to civil unions or weddings. It adds that it continues to view marriage as between a man and a woman. In the Rainbow Nation, South Africa's ex-president Jacob Zuma joined forces with another graft-tainted former top ruling party official on Friday, announcing a political alliance ahead of elections. This is a blow to the embattled African National Congress. 81-year-old Zuma and Ace Magashule, a close ally and former ANC Secretary General, said they would soon unveil plans for a joint political future. The pair, who both lost their jobs over corruption allegations, have recently formed separate parties in the run-up to general elections due to take place between May and August this year. The move could further dilute support for the ANC, which is struggling in the polls, and could see its share of the votes drop below 50% for the first time since the advent of democracy in 1994. The new government of French Prime Minister Gabriel Attal has been announced, with only one major change at the Foreign Ministry, while most high-profile cabinet members remained unchanged. According to the French presidency statement, the Interior, Finance, Defense and Justice ministers remain in place. The members of the government were agreed upon by 34-year-old Attal, who is France's youngest ever premier and centrist President Emmanuel Macron. The new government spokesperson is Priska Thévenot, previously a junior minister in charge of the youth. While speaking with her predecessor, Olivier Véran, during the handover ceremony, Thévenot says the ministry must tirelessly be one of dialogue.
La France s'est dotée d'un nouveau Premier ministre et je le dis avec la plus grande conviction, nous avons de la chance, beaucoup de chance, alors longue vie et plein succès à Gabriel Attal et son gouvernement. Après avoir porté la parole du gouvernement, je retrouve donc désormais une pleine liberté de parole. J'en userai, fidèle à mes convictions social-démocrates, humanistes, européennes, résolument progressistes. Je redeviens dans quelques semaines député de ma magnifique circonscription, urbaine et montagneuse de Grenoble et de la proche vallée du Grésivaudan.
Ce rôle, je l'endosse avec humilité et responsabilité, car je sais ô combien les attentes sont nombreuses. Depuis 2017, le gouvernement et la majorité présidentielle n'ont eu de cesse de réformer notre pays dans tous les domaines pour qu'il demeure une nation forte et solidaire, une nation qui est fière d'elle et qui peut ainsi rayonner au-delà de ses frontières. Ce que je souhaite incarner avec vous, c'est cette volonté ardente de faire de notre France plurielle une république unie. Au moment des ruptures, des non-dits, des silences, ce ministère doit être inlassablement celui du dialogue.
And that's all at this hour, but before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. Nigeria's Supreme Court has affirmed elections of Lagos and Bauchi state governors and reinstated Governor Abba Yusuf of Kano State. Bombardment in the Sudanese capital, Khartoum, have killed at least 33 civilians. We also told you that Cape Verde has become the third African country to eliminate malaria. Send your eyewitness reports to the number on the screen. You can follow us on social media at News Central TV. You can watch live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and on YouTube. Thank you for watching.